Hi, welcome to Southern Girl in the City. This is Dominique Duarte. I am a singer-actor who currently resides in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. So for the most part this week it's been pretty chill. I didn't really have any shifts this week for catering. The last shift I worked was on Saturday. I did find out that I do get to start my new job at a public school as a teacher's assistant for a fourth grade class of gifted students. I start that job at 8 a.m. on Monday. So I have that job at least until June. Um, it's not a salary position and it doesn't have benefits, but it's something. And at least I found something. Um, and then I'm also working at Tribeca Rooftop, two more training shifts this week after work. So after I finish working at the full-time job, I'm going to work in catering. Um, right now, my goal really is to get out of debt before I'm 40. And so in order to do that, when I've done the math, I basically need to make an additional part-time job income. So this was something I figured out before I lost my job in September. I realized that I just have a lot of debt. And it's funny because I can't even say, oh, I went shopping, or oh, I went traveling, or oh, I go out all the time, because I don't. I live a very simple life. I live in New York City, but I go home and I go to work. And I might see a friend like a couple times a month. And even then, there's some months where that wasn't the case. So I don't travel. I've never been outside of America. I got a passport because my agent told me to get one in case I book some work outside of America, which I've come close to doing, but haven't yet. Um, I'm actually going to be on a money show tomorrow, and it's called Debt Confessions, and it's going to talk about all of my debt and like how I got into debt, and it's gonna be pretty vulnerable, but I'm just gonna go on and do it. It's my YouTube channel. I'm a little bit scared because I've seen some of the episodes and I'm like, he's gonna eat me. But no, I mean, even if he does eat me, maybe I deserve it because uh it's funny. I never got a credit card until I was 28. I never got a credit card until I was 28. And I got the credit card because I needed to buy a bed. Because the first 2 years I lived in New York, I lived with my best friend's sister, and she lived in Baltimore. So she and I were splitting the rent, but I was living in her apartment, so I was sleeping in her queen bed. But I couldn't take the queen bed to the new apartment when I moved, so because it was too big. So I needed a twin bed. So I got an Amazon Chase credit card. I think it was only like $1,900 limit because I already owe so much in student loans that when I did get credit cards, I really wasn't getting high limits. So I put my mattress and my bed from one was from Amazon. They were both from Amazon. The mattress and the bed that I currently sleep in 2024, and I bought it in 2018. Uh, I bought it on that credit card. And then I had to get another credit card because this was the craziest situation. Welcome to New York. I lived in an apartment, the apartment that I got after I moved out of my friend's sister's apartment. I moved on East 28th Street. That's not my current address, so it's not giving you much. And there's a bunch of East 28th streets in New York City, so good luck trying to find it. Basically, I live down the street from where I currently live. And apparently, this apartment, the electric bill had not been paid for 3 years. Now, I'm thinking that I'm paying the utilities because it's not in my name. It's one of my roommate's names. She is actually paying the gas bill. We have been paying the gas bill this entire time, not the electric bill. Because in the state of New York, I don't know about other states, but in Memphis, Tennessee, it's called Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. It's all one thing. But in New York City, They're three separate companies. You pay a bill to the water company, you pay a bill to the gas company, and you pay a bill to the electric company. So for the year that I was in that apartment, I was there for 2 years, but for the first year, I was paying her for the gas. Didn't know that that was what it was. I thought it was the electric bill, okay? Like, but I was just paying the gas. So when this roommate moves out and we're trying to get the utilities in my name, this is when we find out that the electric bill had not been paid for 3 years. How did this happen? Mysteries. Okay, here's how it happened. So now that we have modern technology, in order to get your bill read, your little meter read, they have a van coming by with a smart meter and it just reads it. Well, all the other apartments, all of their meters are in the basement. But our apartment, ours is not a smart meter. We had the ancient meter from back in the day. So the smart meter wouldn't work to read our meter. And they could never get into the basement or into the apartment complex to even cut it off. So that's how it went on that long. Also, my other roommates were from different states. Because one of them was from Ohio, and I think she had been there for, I think, 2 years at that point. But she didn't know about it either. But she wasn't that invested. But I wanted to get it in my name. So they basically were like, okay, you've lived there a year, so this is about how much you probably should pay for a year's worth of electric utilities. What does this mean? It means I had to take out another credit card. And this was in the course of a year. I went from having no credit cards to having two. And the second credit card I got was for $1,200. It was for Citizens. Still haven't paid off, excuse me, I still haven't paid off the Amazon card at this point. But I'm like, I ain't got it. So here's $1,000. Now we can get this electric bill in my name. And now we can pay it every month. Third credit card, Bank of America. I was a customer at Bank of America at this point because in New York City, they don't have a Regions Bank because that's the bank that I had in Tennessee, which I liked. But they don't have a Regions in New York. So it was either Chase or Bank of America. So I went with Bank of America. Now, Bank of America did have a credit card. And at this point, I had quit Trader Joe's. This was like maybe a year after I took out the first two. And the English online, I was trying to teach English online. I just wasn't making enough. And then there was a time period where I had to wait for the background check to clear, just like I just had to wait for this background check to clear. But at least this time I had another job, so I could just work in catering. But then I didn't have another job, and the English wasn't paying enough. So I needed a credit card just to get by until, because I think at that point I even went into my 401k because Trader Joe's had a really nice 401k. And because I withdrew it early, I only got like a really small percentage of it because it was a decent amount considering that I was only at that company for 2.5 years. Like, I was shocked at the 401k at that place. Not a lot of my jobs have had 401ks. My full-time teaching positions have, but like currently I'm working at a job where I don't have benefits. So, yeah, so I ended up taking another credit card. When I first moved to New York, I want to go to AMDA. I get a really nice scholarship and financial aid to cover my first year there. But I still have $9,000 left over. And this is even after I'm not living on campus, because I don't end up living on campus. I actually end up living with my friend's sister. So I do not end up having to live on campus. But that does mean that I have a really long commute to AMDA every day. When my classmates, they're right down the street from AMDA, but because they're in the dorms, but I'm commuting from Brooklyn, from Bed-Stuy. So I take out a $9,000 loan. Initially, I'm not even gonna lie, I never asked my family for help. I really don't. I try my best not to. One relative I did ask if he could co-sign for a loan for me. But then I realized that I didn't even need anybody to co-sign because my credit was really good. Despite the fact that I have not made a lot of money in my adult life, my credit had been pretty good because I always paid my bills on time, which may have worked to my disadvantage because when I was having moments where I might have been a little tight with money, I was so adamant about paying it on time that I felt like I would panic and I'd take out a credit card or I'd take out a personal loan. So when I first moved to New York, let's say I had about $30,000 in debt when I graduated college. That has ballooned to $57,860 today because when I first graduated, I got in this program 6 months after I graduated because there's like a grace period. After the grace period, I got in this income based program and it wasn't associated with the federal government. I thought it was, but it wasn't. I paid them $50 a month from the year 2014. Wait, 20. I paid it for 3 years. I think that I found out there was a scam in 2017. But basically, I thought I was paying off my student loans $50 a month for 3 years. And turns out I didn't put a dime towards my student loans. So all this time, the interest is just building those 3 years. Then I take out the price, and if I had known this before I got accepted to AMDA, I may not have taken out that personal loan because taking out the private loan because I'm thinking I'm putting a dent in my debt. But I don't find out until after I'm done with AMDA or after my year at AMDA that, oh yeah, you actually owe even more money because the interest has just been building and you haven't been putting any money towards it. You thought you were putting money towards it, but you weren't. So eventually I finally get it to where it's $20 a month and it's legit this time. And I do $20 a month for a while, but the interest is still increasing. I mean, the interest is making the principal just get higher and higher and higher. And here we are. I went from owing $30,000 when I graduated to now $57,860. That's the most of the debt. Then I moved to New York to go to AMDA. I took out a $9,000 loan. I paid on that loan from 2017 until 2023, actually. And I still barely put a dent in it. I was paying like $134 a month on time every single month, pretty much. Like it was like clockwork. And then this is where it gets really difficult for me financially. So I took out those 3 credit cards. By 2019, I have 3 credit cards, but I'm able to manage the credit cards. I'm still managing the private loan. We're in the middle of the pandemic, so I end up not really having to put much towards my student loans from school. And the interest isn't building then because of the COVID. They put the pause on for a really long time. But it had built up so much before that even though they did that, it still didn't put a dent. And it could be higher actually. If they had not put a pause on it, it probably would be close to 70,000 at this point. So I 57,000 from undergrad loans. That was just to get my bachelor's degree. I took out $9,000 private loan to go to AMDA. Was paying on it pretty consistently, and actually could have continued paying on it and with no problem, but we'll get to why I stopped paying on it because I've said it, but I don't think I've said it in a video. But I'm in the National Debt Relief Program. In order to be in the National Debt Relief Program, I had to stop paying all my bills, except for rent, obviously. But I had to stop paying it. It was weird because I'm not used to not paying my bills. I pay all my bills on time, which is why I've been able to get into so much debt because they're like, oh, you're really good about paying your stuff on time. But that means them being like, oh, well, you can take this personal loan, you can take this private loan, you can take the student loan, because we know you're going to pay the bill. I always thought having a good credit score was a good thing, but it's actually kind of predatory, a little bit. Anyway, here's where it gets really, really, really bad financially for me. So I know I have the AMDA loan. I know I have the 3 credit cards, and I know that I have my undergrad loans. This is in 2020. I'm like, you know what? I really want to put a dent in this debt. Why don't I get a full-time teaching position? I got a full-time teaching position at Achievement First, Crown Heights. I ended up working there the entire school year. In order to work that job, I had to enroll in graduate school. I paid $4,000 out of pocket, out of my paychecks, for the to pay for my tuition that school year, in addition to scholarship. At the end of the year, you get a scholarship. You get all the scholarship money, plus you still had to pay whatever was left over. It was $4,000 left over. I had to pay that out of my own money. And so even though my income increased as a teacher, my rent also increased because I had to move because my roommate ended up going back home after COVID, during COVID. And so then I ended up having to move because the landlord was like, well, I want to keep you as a tenant, but don't, I want to rent to families and I don't really want to rent to single people. Like, so the way roommate situations work is really, I like currently I have 3 roommates, but we're each paying this person, we're each paying the landlord separately. So if they don't pay their rent, it's not affecting me. If I don't pay my rent, it's not affecting them. Like, you're on your own. Even though we live together, we are all having a separate relationship with the landlord, which was how it was at the last apartment. Um, but I ended up having to move to a more expensive apartment because I needed to find something quick. So I found an apartment. It was 9, 10 a month. And so then not only did my rent increase, but I had to put $4,000 uh, of my own money towards my tuition for that year. So I did that. And then I fail my evaluation before I finish the school year. I fail it right when they're giving promotions to the teachers in residence because I was a teacher in residence, which meant like I was like a trial teacher for the year. But because of the pandemic, we taught online the entire year. So I failed it and I got an opportunity to pass before the end of the year, but it was too late because everybody else had gotten offers and I had not. So I didn't think I was going to be rehired. So I quit. And I got another job at a school in Queens. When I say I went to probably 30 interviews before I got that position, I got the job. I'm in grad school for the second year this time. I do the summer session, I do the fall session, and then I just really get to the point where I just am like, you know what, I don't think the school is a good fit. So before I quit this school, I get a job at a public school. And this is in the middle of the year. So I leave for the public school in December. I leave the Queen School for the public school in Brooklyn in December. I get COVID on my first day of work at the public school. I get exposed to COVID. My symptoms don't show up until a week later. And then I'm out of school for a week and a half because it took COVID was rough. Um, and then I come back and me and my co-teacher are kind of not getting along because she's really stressed out about the principal. I think he's putting a lot of pressure on her, and she and I are just not agreeing on something, and we kind of have a little bit of an argument. And I just say, you know what, I'm just gonna resign because I'm tired. Because at this point, this was my third school in a year and a half, and I just was done. So here's where the financial stuff gets to be rough because basically because my graduate school graduation is based off of me finishing my teaching position. My thesis had to be on my teaching abilities with my class. So my thesis was supposed to track the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester with these kids. So everybody keeps saying, well, why don't you just go back? Why don't you just go and finish? Y'all, I tried. I went back in 2023 to try to finish, and then something else happened. So this is when it gets really rough because at this point I have the 3 credit cards, I have the private loan, and I've been keeping up with those. I've been keeping up with the credit cards, I've been keeping up with the private loan, I've been doing it. But here we get to 2022 and I really start to struggle because I took out a personal loan to cover my expenses after I quit teaching. I was booking acting work, but not enough to pay enough. So, and then I started doing catering jobs, but ironically enough, and then I also worked at a summer camp, and that summer camp was nice money. Um, so I was still able to keep up with the bills, but I took the personal loan, the first personal loan, then I took a second personal loan just to get by. And these loans were like, one of them was like $2,000, and the other one was like maybe three. And this is where it gets rough. Because I didn't finish my semester at my school, I didn't get the scholarship at the end of the year, even though I already put another $4,000 on my tuition. I put a total of $8,000 on my tuition in 2 years, and yet I still didn't finish my degree. But basically, I had to pay back my school $6,000 because I didn't get the scholarship because I didn't finish teaching. So then I end up owing Relay graduate school $6,000, and they want me to pay about $600 a month for a year because they want it back in a year. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. So what I end up doing is taking out my final personal loan with Best Egg. I took it out for $6,000, and I put all that money towards Relay, and I paid it. Then a year later, I'm struggling financially. I decided to go back into full-time teaching because this is about the time, because I took a leave of absence from Relay. I didn't quit. I wanted to, but my professor was like, why don't you just take a leave of absence for a year? So I took a leave of absence. When the leave of absence is about to arrive, I get another full-time job in February of 2023 teaching math for a sixth grade classes at a school in the Bronx. I'm there for 5 weeks. The assistant principal, because the principal didn't really speak very much. The assistant principal and the principal were friends, but basically, the assistant principal and her were just teachers not that long before. Like that year, the original principal had been fired. So there was just the two of them who were best friends forever. They had been teaching for a long time together. One of the assistant principal was actually a science teacher at the beginning of the school year and was now an assistant principal. She and I got along really well up until the very end. She wanted me to teach music because she saw I had a music background, even though she hired me to be a sixth grade math teacher. Initially, I say, okay, I'll teach music, but I know that to meet my requirement for my degree, I still have to teach a math class. So what I was going to do is teach math first period and with my homeroom class, and then I would teach music the rest of the day because the music teacher was going to be leaving in like a month. However, I changed my mind and I say, you know what, I actually just want to teach math because I would only have to teach one math lesson for 4 classes. It'd be the same math lesson 4 times, which I thought would be great because I think it would make me better at executing the lessons. So they were like, okay, that's fine. And I sent an email for that to say that I changed my mind. And I make it to like parent teacher conferences with the kids. I ended up towards the end, I'm in their office. I'm in the assistant principal's office, and she's basically saying she wants to move me because she's not happy with my classroom management. However, I've only been there 5 weeks, and technically, my homeroom class, their behavior had improved because those kids I had been with every day since I started. But those other kids I hadn't been with. You know why? Because they had me observing other classrooms during those classes and having the other person teach. So I really did not have a relationship with those other students in the other periods. But my homeroom class, I actually thought made quite a bit of progress. And even the music teacher noticed, she said their behavior is so much better. So I'm like, I definitely made a difference. It was very short, but their behavior improved significantly in those 5 weeks. But my other classes, I just didn't have the relationship because I was always observing. For the first 2 weeks, I was observing all these other teachers, so I can learn how to be a teacher. So anyway, I'm in her office, and she's basically like, well, we want to move you to teach 7th grade with Miss Davis. And I was like, okay, fine. I mean, actually, I thought that was a great idea because Miss Davis was a great teacher. Here's the problem. My certification for my master's degree was in grades 1 through 6. So I know this makes no sense to people in other states, but in the state of New York, there are 3 certifications. There is baby to 2nd grade, there's 1st through 6th grade, and there is 7th through 12th grade. They are 3 separate certifications, 3 separate master's programs. So my master's program was 1 through 6, which meant that because I did not have my degree yet and I was still in the process of getting my certification, I could not teach 7th grade. She also wanted me to teach SETS, which SETS was a special education group, which I thought, okay, that'll be fine. But then I find out from my professor, she's like, you can't teach 7th grade. You can't teach SETS. You can't do either one of those. That's against state regulation. And I was like, oh man. Because in the office, I do tell the assistant principal, I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to do that. And she's like, Mr. Duarte, you're making this too difficult. Just record the back of their heads for your grad school. I went to the same grad school as you. Just pretend. Just say you're teaching 6th grade, even though you're teaching 7th. And at first, I'm like, okay. Because I had already said I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it, and then she said that, and then I'm like, okay, well then okay. But then I talked to my professor afterwards, and she's just like, that's not okay. You can't do that. And then I also had talked to my church about it, and they were like, you need to talk to your professor. So I did, and that meant that I sent an email to the dean, and the reason I did that is because before I left her office, she told me not to send her another one of my emails, okay? So I was like, all right. So I will send her an email and the principal, and I actually didn't CC her on it. I CC'd the principal, but not the assistant principal. But the assistant principal was the one that talked to me about this. The principal really didn't say hardly anything, but she ended up getting really angry with me that day. So I come into work on a Tuesday, normal, and then she comes into my class and she tells the kids that she got this promotion, which is so random, but like, I don't know, like she told them, I'm in the middle of a math lesson, and she's like telling them that she got a promotion, and then she leaves. And then she asked the other guy to come in to my classroom and teach the rest of the lesson, and she calls me out of the room. And then I go to her office, and then her and the principal meet with me, and the assistant principal, the principal's kind of like not sure what's happening because she doesn't know about our conversation. But I was also trying not to throw her under the bus, so I felt awkward. um Basically, the assistant principal was like, after all I've done for you, after all I've tried to help you, like, why would you send a thing to the dean and you didn't even CC me on it? Because basically in the email I said I'm not allowed, I was asked to teach outside of my certification. I'm not, and I learned that I'm not allowed to do that, and I talked to them to no avail. What I meant with no avail is that I did try to tell her that I didn't think I was supposed to do it, but she didn't listen. And she basically told me to lie. So I was like, okay. Um, that made me feel so uncomfortable, that conversation. And I basically said I really would like a third party in the room, because I know having the two of them together was like having the two besties in the room. So I was like, okay, never mind. Let me just, get a third party. When they went to get a third party, I don't know if it was the Holy Spirit or what, but something just told me to resign. I just said, give it up. It's not worth it. If somebody's going to ask you to be dishonest at work, it's not for you. So I left. But let me tell you, when they say no good deed goes unpunished, That's true. Because despite the fact that my professor knew my situation, I still end up owing another $4,000 because I didn't finish my degree, because I had to be a teacher in order to finish it. And at this point, it is April of 2023. There are only 2 more months of school. And June doesn't even really count because in graduate school, most of your work is due at the end of May. So at this point, it's a wrap. I basically ended up owing $10,000 in a year. I owed $6,000 from not finishing in 2022. Then owing another $4,000 that I still owe $3,700 for now. And people keep being like, why don't you finish? You should just finish. You're so close. I have 30 credits towards a master's degree in elementary education grades 1 through 6. And yet, I can't afford to go back to school to redo it. Because one, I have to have a teaching position. I have to have a full-time teaching position. And that teaching position is what helps me do my graduate school work. They are linked. It's not a separate thing. So, like, when I'm in relay, my performance as a teacher is what I'm being graded on in graduate school. So, I owe $3,700 to relay. So, that's debt. No interest is building, but it's debt. It's debt that I owe that I haven't paid back. I paid a little bit on it, but I haven't been able to pay it. So, then there's that. Then I had taken out 3 personal loans the previous year. At this point, it gets to be too much. I cannot keep up with all these bills. And I'm just like, you know what? I thought about filing bankruptcy because I was like, I don't know what to do. I owe $80,000 in debt. At that point, it was actually more than that. I think it was over 80. It was probably close to 84. I was looking into bankruptcy, and then I saw that with bankruptcy, you have to pay to file bankruptcy. And I'm like, I don't have money to file bankruptcy. So here's what I do. I do a little research, found out about the National Debt Relief Program. I get in the National Debt Relief Program in July of last year. And when I say this program has been really good, don't get me wrong, there have been some rough months because they take out a lot of money out of my bank account every month. But I enrolled 7 creditors into it. My student loans cannot be included. You know, student loans, you can't even put them in bankruptcy. So that is its own separate thing. But the $23,000 that I have accrued, that's not including relay. Relay is still a separate thing. Also, in December of last year, I got a doctor bill that was $2,500. And I was like, where did this come from? Well, here's what happened. Because I kept going from teaching to not teaching, teaching to not teaching. So one minute I had Medicaid, another minute I had another insurance. And because it kept flip-flopping, my primary care doctor was not keeping up with that. So I think they just were like, it just ended up being a bill. So in December I learned I owed another $2,500. It just was too much. It was too much. I couldn't keep up with it. I'm a single person. I'm working all the time and I'm like, I can't keep up with this. So here's what I did. I got in the National Debt Relief Program. And when I say this program, it ain't easy. It is not easy. Because you have to have the money come out of your bank account and automatically. That's a requirement. So it was coming out every 2 weeks. Now I have it coming out once a month. At this point, I have put $4,600 into this program over the course of the past year and a half. They have settled for 5 of my 7 creditors. I have paid all the fees because there are fees. When they settle the debt, there's also a fee. But they settled it for half and then there was a fee. So at this point, 4 of my creditors, I paid all the fees. And there's a timeline for how long I'm supposed to pay the rest of it. So 2 of my creditors will be paid off in June of 2026. One of them will be paid off in March. I'm so sorry I said that wrong. Two of my creditors will be paid off in June of 2025. One of them will be paid off in March of 2025. And then two of them will be paid off in 2026. And then there are two that have not negotiated yet. But considering I've only been in the program since July of last year, I'd say that's pretty big. I mean, they basically split my debt in half. That's still not including my student loans. That's not including Relay, the school that I owe. Yeah, I mean, the adulthood is challenging, but the financial aspect was definitely something that I may have not been as educated about, to be honest. I mean, hey, math was never my best subject. But I also feel like none of the debt that I took out was because I was just traveling all the time or because I was just being irresponsible. It's just I tried to be an educator because I thought that was going to increase my income more than I had been making. But then, in order to do that, I had to get an education again. And because I ended up having some missteps in the education career, I ended up owing a lot of money. And I can't, I mean, it's a lot to process. I mean, I put $8,000 of my own money towards my education and I end up owing $10,000. I tried. And that's the thing. It's like, I tried. And it's like, yeah, I live in New York, but like I said, I don't go out. I buy groceries and I might go to the bodega, but I'm not out here just wilding out on money. It's just, I didn't know how hard it was going to be a single person. I mean, even my cell phone bill, you go to the place and they're like, oh, if you would add another line, we could cut this in half. And it's like, I don't have another person to add a line with. So it just, anyway, basically, I'm going to be on this show tomorrow and I hope he doesn't eat me alive. But anyway, I'm just being vulnerable. This is also another side of being a senior actor, which is the financial side. And sometimes it can be rough. But stay encouraged. I hope you have a lovely week. Bye.